ever say we love the alcohol, la 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 la. Just line them up and we will drink them all, la 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 la. But my mother always said, if you want to drink all day, you best start in the morning, son, 'cause that's the Irish way. We don't get drunk, we get awesome, and every other mother will agree. We don't get drunk, we get awesome, so order up around for you and me. We don't get drunk, we get awesome, and every mother best agree. We don't get drunk, we get awesome, so order up around for you and me, and you and me, and you and me. Let there be whiskey.
Hey everybody! A little late there. I was trying to turn Ghosty on.
It happens.
Welcome to Nerds with Alcohol. I'm Chris.
I'm Renee.
And I'm Ed.
Yeah, Ed has joined us tonight for as a guest host. He's been on the show before for those that have been around for a while. But it's been a little while since you've been on.
Yeah, wow. I was thinking about that. I think it came up in my Facebook memories when I was trying to plug the show. Like, I don't know, it's been a few years.
It was probably at least 2019.
Well, I think he's been on once since we've been streaming.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, at least, I mean, a couple years.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
But yeah, so Ed used to also be part of our Tavern Nights group. He's one of the originals from that. His character still gets mentioned.
Oh gosh, really?
Yep. Actually, Bennett came up recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Klimbram was talking about Bennett.
No, I gave you credit for a really good quote.
Oh no.
It was a quote that Bennett said to Klimbram, and I thought I role-played that really well. The quote was, why do you want to blend in so badly when it's so clear that you were born to stand out?
Oh,
and
okay.
I gave Bennett credit for that.
Oh wow. Yay.
So yes,
Okay.
Bennett is still mentioned once in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yep. So CD, our number one fan, says that he does think that you've been on since Twitch. So
yeah.
Okay. Yep, maybe. It's been a
while. Minute though.
It's been a minute. It's also, life is also weird. I've gotten to that age where it's like a conveyor belt where new stuff comes in and other stuff falls out, and I just have.
Well,
and it's day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, but all my days are just molded into one.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's one of those things where with the whole pandemic thing too, time has like that's 2 years that have just disappeared. So it's weird when you think about, oh, that was just no, wait, that was before the pandemic. That was 3 years ago now. You know,
yeah. And it's nuts too, and because like a lot of the circumstances of sort of evolving through the pandemic, I went from, oh my God, I don't want to do anything, to I have to do something. And I think when you guys started segueing away from virtual and getting back around the table for Tavern Nights, I just wasn't ready. I was like, I'm panicky. That feels worrisome. And just being in the situation I was with my mom being older and other things going on, like if I got sick, I just like the whole thing would fall apart. And now it's like flash forward however long it's been, again, total blur. You know, things have shifted and changed a little bit. So, it's a weird,
absolutely,
weird world.
Yep. But yeah, so you were the first one that had to leave the show, and then Ian and Sydney had to leave because they had other things going on as well.
They couldn't commit to the night.
Yeah. So they've actually talked about coming back and playing their characters, which I would love to do when they get rescued. If they get rescued.
Yeah. Whenever you allow that, and you give us a nugget of info.
Yeah. Bennett just got to walk away.
Bennett's dealing with his own shit and his own life.
Phelan and Lauka got kidnapped.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm thinking like that scene at the end of like some Western movie where I walk off into the sunset like the end of the Incredible Hulk TV series where the music plays and I will wistfully look over my shoulder as I walk away.
And then it freezes.
Yeah.
Like all those shows did back then.
Yeah, all the shows did that. Yeah, we're in a jag in this house of watching like really old television, and yeah, that trope comes up again and again of like the freeze frame at the end of the episode, and that fades to some weird sepia tones or something like that, and there it is. So,
but now speaking of Incredible Hulk, did you watch She-Hulk at all?
I did. I loved it.
That last episode where they basically recreated the Incredible Hulk.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah,
it's awesome. Good. Frame for frame.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the when she was like the running gag about like I smashed 3 things.
Yeah.
Was it the law, the 4th wall, and sometimes Matt Murdock?
Yeah. Yeah. And then she does like a little dance.
Yeah.
Which I thought
she looks out at the camera. Yeah.
Awesome.
And the way she said it too. And sometimes Matt Murdock.
I was a little bummed. I felt like they came out of the gate swinging with the CGI. It was really good the first 2 episodes, and then it's just I heard all sorts of stories about how they were being rushed or pushed to get it out, and it definitely suffered. But I kind of just took a deep breath and tried to remember Polygon video games from being a kid and be like, dude, I'm just happy it's here.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, I'm like, I accept the fact that it's a TV show budget, not a movie budget, and also a TV show timeline, not a movie timeline. So, like, I can deal with subpar graphics.
I saw, like, a behind-the-scenes video, like a short one, and they were showing how they did some of the scenes. And it's her basically walking around with, like, a bunch of stuff on, like, the mocap stuff. But then she's got, like, this antenna that goes up like 3 feet above her head with her picture on it.
Yeah.
And it
to show that so that
everyone knew where to look. But it looks so funny, and she's walking around and you just see that, and she's doing like the strut when she's when she gets to the wedding and stuff, and then she's just got this face above her that's just bobbing.
I'm always impressed at actors' ability, especially actors who are completely mocapped, and for movies that have a lot of CGI, that they can put themselves in that element and still do spectacular acting, because like the elements around you are not helping you in that situation. To be able to like put yourself in that moment and like have a super emotional scene while looking at someone who just has a bunch of dots on their face.
Yeah.
I'm always really impressed in actors and actresses that can do that.
Well, that and like when they're acting around nothing but a green screen.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some of that too, and I'm like, how do you do that? Because there's nothing to play off of.
Exactly.
An interview with Ian McKellen, he said something he was thinking about quitting The Hobbit because he was getting really depressed because there was so much green screen work. And he was like, this is really depressing. I didn't get into acting to just act in a room with nobody else around. And I guess they had to sort of talk him down. It wasn't as bad for Lord of the Rings because I think a lot more of the effects were practical at that point.
And also they filmed on location as well.
Yeah, I don't know
what The Hobbit too.
Yeah, I don't know, but for whatever reason he said is like, I'm over it, and so he almost walked. So that's something else.
Yeah. I think for The Hobbit, they did more internal shooting though and studio shooting than they did for Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, they did a lot of outside shooting in forests and things like that, I think, versus The Hobbit, there was a lot more green screen and stuff.
And with people like Ian McKellen, who has been in the game for so long, he predates CGI, so everything was either practical effects or location or at least studio. And I mean, he was also a stage actor before he got into movies, so he always had other things or other people to play off of. But to just act to like a green head, I would imagine that's really difficult.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart had a interview on NPR. It's about a half hour long, and it's just brilliant. And he references the advice that Ian McKellen would give him, because Patrick Stewart was a stage actor, just was convinced to come to the U.S. and interview for Star Trek and got the role. And his agent's like, "This is only going to last a year because the show's garbage." And then you can. He had all intentions of becoming a stage actor here, but then Jean-Luc Picard and his life went a completely different direction. But what he taught, like the stories he has about Ian McKellen are awesome and it's well worth the listen to. I can definitely find the link and I can post it in the Nerds chat or the Discord because it's a really, really good listen to.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, whenever I think of roles other than Star Trek for Patrick Stewart, I just imagine him with a pug under one arm and a laser gun in the other from Dune.
Yep. He did.
I think of him in Excalibur.
Oh, that too.
Yeah, he played Macbeth on stage, and Ian McKellen. Then this was like at the beginning of their friendship. It was actually this that sparked their friendship, because Ian McKellen had just won a Tony not a Tony, the other stage one. Doesn't matter. He won an award for playing Macbeth, with Dame Judi Dench. And Patrick Stewart was playing, Macbeth in England, and Ian McKellen gave him advice on, the whole monologue of time and time and time and time, and that's the entire monologue. Ian McKellen's advice, he's like, the most important word in that line is and. And it was a relevate or just
revelation.
Thank you to Patrick Stewart on that, because Ian McKellen also studied theater and went to college for theater, whereas Patrick Stewart didn't have any of that. Patrick Stewart never went to university. He also had to learn the accent that he has because he grew up speaking with a dialect and barely spoke English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, also didn't know. It's a great interview. I highly recommend it.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll find it. Didn't mean to segue with Ian McKellen.
That's all right. So, let's see. We'll start with you, Renee. Ladies first. What are you drinking? I
am drinking Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. I didn't grab the bottle. It's on the bar. But that's what I'm drinking. And it's delicious.
That is a very delicious thing.
With a fancy Nerds with Alcohol ice cube.
As should be for the show. You drinking anything tonight, Ed?
No, I guess I'm maintaining my trend. I always forget that's what's going on. Well, I don't even think we have any alcohol in the house right now. So I just finished my coffee, which
I was gonna say, is everyone okay?
We just don't, it's
I mean, if you're not big drinkers, you're not big drinkers. There's nothing wrong with that.
Really, my buddy John, who's in the game I'm running, he's started growing his own hops and brewing his own beer.
Nice.
And so he brought over a growler for the game, and so I had some of that. And it's funny because I don't really have because I don't drink much, I don't really have a developed palate. And so he's always excited, like, oh, it's aged really nice, or it's right where it needs to be now. And I'm like, I was over at your place a week ago and I thought it was great. It's pretty much tastes the same today. But it's good. Yep. He knows what he's doing. He's got these trellises in his yard and these plants go up.
They climb 9-12 feet. Yeah.
These are every bit of 15 feet up in the air. In the
nice
system he's got. It's wired, too big. It looks like a telephone pole with these supports coming down.
Yep.
And he definitely has a green thumb. They've converted every square inch of that property, with very little lawn left. So they've got all these grow boxes and all sorts of stuff. And so they had a swath on the side of the house. They just growing these hops. I think at one point
that is cool.
So yeah, it's some good stuff.
Yeah, we got some friends that grow their own hops. Their back deck, they actually have a trellis up above it and a pergola thing, and they actually grow the hops up the side and across the top.
Oh,
and
cool.
sometimes I guess they said it'll even go down the other side depending on how good of a season it is.
Oh, nice.
And every year they have people over. They're like, all right, come on over. It's harvest day. Come help us harvest hops. And they take them to local breweries so that they're fresh. Puppy. And they can do
I see a floof ball.
Oh yeah. Hey buddy.
But they'll do where they can do like harvest ales and stuff, and then they use some of them themselves. But they're like, yeah, come on over. They have a bunch of beers on tap because they're big time home brewers, and they have like 4 taps in the garage and 4 taps in their basement, something like that. And it's a variation between their stuff and other stuff. Plus they have meads on, and I mean they have all sorts of stuff. But
they're also like chefs and have like the most beautiful kitchen I've ever seen.
Yeah, they said the kitchen
both
sold
work
the house
from home and make fuck you money. So.
But yeah, but anyway, they're like, yeah, come on over, we'll buy pizza, you can have whatever you want in the kegs. Just if we get enough people, we can get it done in an hour or two. And
they're good people.
Yeah,
really good souls too.
Yeah, they're both on my curling team right now on Sundays.
Oh wow, yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
What are you drinking, Chris?
There you go.
Oh yeah, I am drinking a beer that I've had for a little while. This one was actually one that somebody from the curling club actually was talking about over the summer, and it's called Cherry Bomb by Austin Brothers. It
oh nice.
Yeah, and it actually shows like a cherry lighting another one's stem, and it's burning like a sparkler, and it's holding 2 sparklers, and one goes boom. So it's like they're being a bomb. This is a 5.1% ABV, and it is an ale with cherries, is what it's called. It says we start. I haven't
tried it yet. I've seen it down here.
We start with a traditional German Pilsner base, and then add tart Montmorency cherries from northern Michigan.
That's the same kind that goes into Zombie Killer, or at least used to.
Okay. It is a pink-ish color, kind of I guess there is some sediment in the bottom, it looks like. Make sure, yeah, that's not on the glass. That's actually sediment. I believe it also was re-fermenting in the can, because when I opened it, it actually did foam out.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I poured
be careful with fruit.
And then when I poured it, it was like half a thing of foam. So, I'm not sure if this is actually tasting the way that it's supposed to, because I've heard that it really is like cherry pie. This one doesn't quite taste it, so a lot of the cherry is kind of died off. There is some, and it's actually good when you get some of the cherry, but overall, I just give it. I'd say this is probably like a 2.75 or so.
Yeah, it probably re-fermented a little bit. It's one of the issues with adding fruit to your beer post fermentation, which a lot of breweries do, because you're just adding in another inoculation point. And even though they say it's aseptic, I can tell you that it can be flawed.
Looking to see if there's a
Best by date.
This was canned on May 3rd, so it's been a little bit.
Yep.
I picked it up. It's been about probably 2 months since I picked it up. I think I picked it up in September. So, but yeah, it's not bad though. I mean, it's a decent drink. It's I would like a little bit more cherry is all.
Yeah, and if you had it fresher, it might be.
It might be. So, but yeah, it's not too bad.
Because you can't add stabilizing agents in beer. The pH is too high.
Oh, see, all I have is my delicious, neutral, reverse osmosis water.
Hey, reverse osmosis is cool.
Yeah, we ended up springing it. So we would get water delivered because we're bougie. And to be honest, my wife worked in wastewater for years and doesn't trust the city. And
I don't blame her.
So we would get water delivered, and then we found out we could get a system in the house for the whole house. It includes our, a drinking water system plus like softener and everything for clothes and bathing and laundry and all that, for about the same as we were paying for water delivery. So we're like, let's just do it. So
yeah, might as well.
It's nice. It took a lot of rigmarole, but
is it a self cleaning like backflush that it does?
Yeah, I mean they come out once every like 4 times a year to maintenance it. It's
sweet
in our payments and stuff. So it's sort of idiot proof and takes care of itself. And,
that's awesome. Someone I used to work with at B Nectar actually left B Nectar to work at a company that sold those.
Okay.
And I know a decent amount about water treatments in homes because he would tell me all about it. And
Wow.
it might even be the same company. I'm not entirely sure. I don't exactly know what company he worked for, but theirs were specifically designed to be able to be refined enough to get PFAS out. Like
Okay.
that was their whole shtick. Like a very, very good cleaning system for water. And honestly, water chemistry and water science, even though it's like kind of boring to learn about, it's also fascinating if you're like really into inorganic chemistry.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it all kind of factors in if you're brewing or doing any sort of work with water. You know, it's like the backbone of it all. And
Of the 4-book series that I think it was the Brewers Guild that released it. They did yeast, hops, water, and malt.
Okay.
Water's is the longest book. Regrettably, well, not regrettably, Palmer's a really smart man. However, he goes on tangents, and reading the book is exactly like listening to one of his lectures. Is that like he'll be on task and go on a tangent over here, talk about this for a little bit, and then come back. And no pun intended, it is dry reading because it's very chemistry based. But if you're into that, it's fascinating.
Awesome. Yeah, I teach, as you guys know, and one of the games I play in my head is how can I go on a tangent and then bring the tangent back to the point that I left and connect it. I've got pretty good at it over the years. We're like, and this all connects to this all, and this is where we started off, and
we made full circle.
And see, I meant to do that to show you.
Yes.
I got some distraction. Well, because I mean, it is sort of meant to do it because I get distracted on logical things. So there's something that comes up and it'll trigger a memory or a remembrance or a connected issue, and I'll go on some long, big tangent. Usually I think it's an artifact of like I'm teaching classes that are just left of center from my specialty. So then I see all these connections to my specialty. So I go off on some, so my, my pre-med students suddenly get an anthropology lecture inserted in the middle of their medical lectures or their ethics lectures. So I teach healthcare ethics and
history is important.
So then the anthropology comes in and all of a sudden they're like, how is this related? But we figured it out. So
we're going to come back to that in 1 second. I just want to mention, CD said he's got the white chocolate Moohoo from Terrapin. He says, good chocolate flavor, but not sweet like he expected. So, he also said that if you want cherry, get the Wisconsin Belgian Red from New Glarus.
Oh, yes.
That is so
super
good.
Sugary. I can have one. It's delicious, but it's a little bit too much for me. I don't like super sweet things, so.
Yeah. But anyway, so with your being an anthropology specialist, no, I'm just curious. So, did you see anything, or did you do anything during the pandemic to look at how people were behaving, or how things were changing, or anything like that, or is that something that'll be later that comes out?
I mean, I don't know formally that I did a lot for the general public. I did a lot of armchair analysis and surprise, but it's stuff I don't think it's too groundbreaking, but I think, watching sort of cultural reactions to science and the shifting of science, and when we blend science and politics, it kind of made me realize that our public education system isn't as good as we all know it's not great, but it really showed the cracks. About how science works.
A very common thing that is said in this house is that we need to invest more in public education.
Yes, and especially just how science works, and that it's okay to be uncertain. We're all uncertain. I know we turn to these experts for advice and help, and that sense of calm and peace. And I think that was the thing, sort of socially over and over again, is that people just wanted to feel that it was going to be okay, but nobody knew it was going to be okay, not for sure. So unless you wanted to be lied to, you're going to get some weird mixed messages from the powers that be, whether those be politicians or scientists. Now, the politicians were very good about telling us what we wanted to hear. or in case of our governor maybe telling us what we didn't want to hear, and then people got ticked at her and tried to kidnap her and all this other garbage, and that all drama. But yeah, I think on a more formal side, so I work with people with spinal cord injuries, and thinking about physical disabilities and how the pandemic affected them. I had a couple colleagues and we designed an open-ended online survey. So open-ended, I mean, like, it's not multiple choice, but they were just empty text boxes with questions like, how's the pandemic affected you? And, as someone with a spinal cord injury, what concerns might the rest of the world not realize? It was fascinating. We did, maybe 40, 50 people in the UK and 40, 50 people here. We ended up writing a couple articles about it. Very, very similar to our experiences of being disconnected. Ironically, a lot of people felt more connected because they reached out to family and they deepened their relationship with their loved ones. But a lot of people suffered from the lack of medical care because the complexities of that injury comes with a lot more doctor visits, a lot more need for physical therapy, keeping your body moving. So, we're not going to see the long term for a while, I'm sure, of the impact of that. Even my students now, I think, my students' grades and performance all stayed strong during the pandemic. It's the students now, I think, that are doing worse. Now that we're back in the classrooms, I think there's a whiplash effect where everyone's just exhausted. And everyone was sort of phoning it in, I think, over the pandemic, and people were letting a lot of stuff slide. And now we're trying to put the expectations, put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak, and it's not working. So patience is all I can.
See, I was a psych major. I never got my degree, but that's what I was studying, and that's what I wanted to get into. And from a psychological standpoint, I think it's going to be really cool. Well, not necessarily really cool, but it'll be really interesting to see some studies done in about 10 years.
Yeah.
When these kids that were children during the pandemic, especially like grade school age, like the 8 to 12 years old,
like my nieces and nephews.
Yes, and see and talk to them and see how their development is different than what other people have experienced by not having to gone through that in those formative years where you're building a lot of relationships, and you were isolated. And you were taught
and building social cues
and the you don't touch each other, you don't things like that, and just seeing how that all evolves going forward.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was already happening, watching my own daughter grow up disconnected because she was so heavily invested in an online existence. I think it would have been a lot, not to like compare, like back in my day. I think the pandemic would have been twice as hard on us when we were 10, 12, just because there's nothing. Like, at least you could reach out. At least, it's ironic that
you can see someone on a screen,
right?
Instead of just calling someone.
The ability to work from home, and all of these other things that are just impossible, or play games from home. And I think it would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, the mental health problem.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how the pandemic would have been if it happened in like the 70s or 80s.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
The world did shut down. However, it was still functioning.
Yeah.
The world just flat out would have shut down if they did the lockdowns that they did. Honestly, back in the 80s or 70s and 80s, they probably wouldn't have shut down the way that they did. Because no nation would have been able to afford it.
Yeah.
People wouldn't have been able to survive.
Yeah, because you couldn't you wouldn't be able to work.
Disabilities.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to work from home. You wouldn't have been able to learn from home. So yeah, there would have been probably a lot more deaths too, because
it probably would have been catastrophic.
And we probably would know less about it because they would have controlled the messaging differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so this whole conspiracy.
Well, and so as much as I love the technology today, I am so glad that I grew up in an era that didn't have all of this tech. I think Facebook is a great bullying machine. I think a lot of social media has become that for kids. It's a place to go to get bullied. And that's what it's become, and which is a shame because it could also be used for so much good. And
I've been reminded that Facebook is only for people who are like 30 and older now.
So. Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
For the old people, the youngins don't use Facebook anymore.
The only reason
it's millennials and older who use it.
Yep, and it's the only people who are younger use it to stay connected with the people who in their lives that are older. Like they'll lower themselves to go onto Facebook just so that they can, connect with those folks. But in general,
I mostly use Facebook to just stay in touch with my friends.
And then Twitter has become a cesspool.
Oh yeah, I'm about to drop off of Twitter.
Same.
Completely.
I was never big into Twitter to begin with.
I tried to use it as a professional platform. Like I was at a conference and I'm like, I'm just going to tweet this conference. Like I'm just gonna be at this conference. I'm going to see a cool panel. I'm going to tweet about it, whatever. I deleted all of my, older tweets that had to do with, stuff I was using it for previously, and just made it like my professional whatever. And then that lasted for about a month and then I got bored. So
yeah. The most fun I had on Twitter was my fake account. Well, not a fake account, but it was a curling account. Okay. It was called Curling Out of Context.
Yeah.
And it's things overheard on the ice or said on the ice that make complete sense in the middle of a curling game. But if you just heard it, not knowing where it comes from, you would have no idea what's happening.
Or be like what did you say?
Yeah, like the best example is I want you to come across the face, which makes complete sense on the ice. But anybody else will have that reaction.
Yeah. It sounds like like a bad website you want to make.
Yeah, it does. But out on the ice, it's usually so you're
that one.
You throw the rock and you're going from one side, so you're aiming to like one side, but ultimately due to the curl of the ice, you're going to hit it on the other side. So you're coming across the full face and you hit it on the other side than what you're actually aiming at. It makes total sense on the ice, but off the ice, it sounds dirty as fuck.
Yes. That's sit on it.
You sit on it.
I think there's room for like a Dungeons and Dragons out of context.
Too. Oh yeah, we could probably do. I think there's like you could probably do like just about anything out of context. And
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
But CD said the internet as a resource was a great idea. It beats encyclopedias, and I will agree. Except that the thing is that at least the encyclopedia, you knew you had the right answers in there, and that everything you were reading was actually factually based. The internet, you have to look at 10 different sources to make sure that first source was actually telling you what was actually the case. You can't just look at Wikipedia. That's definitely not the same as Encyclopedia Britannica.
One of the best like misinformation things that was like at the very beginning of the internet that has just now become knowledge in society and it's not true at all is how many spiders you ingest in your sleep over your lifetime. That was a completely fake thing, but because it happened so early on public internet that literally generations believe that this fact is true, and it's not.
Yeah,
it just isn't. It was made up.
There's speaking of water again, there's this whole article I'm tucking away for the next time I teach a research methods class, but it's about falsehoods about research related to hydration and water. And one of them is there was only one study with like 8 people in it that showed dehydration related to drinking anything other than water, like coffee and sodas or whatever. It was one study and it got picked up by the Newswire and it became a huge thing. It's completely a falsehood. Any nutritionist will tell you like liquid is liquid, it will hydrate you. And so they're like this whole idea that only 8 glasses, we have to drink 8 glasses of water a day and all this other stuff. These are all sort of scientific shorthand to tell like public digestible nuggets, or it's just based off of one random study that people picked up and ran with.
Well, so, it's like the whole reason that we have the whole marijuana issues and how bad marijuana is was based on a lie. It was based on a guy that was losing his job because prohibition was being repealed, and he needed to hold on to his position. So he made up a bunch of facts about marijuana as being this evil thing, and it had to be stopped. And people ran with it, and to this day, people still believe it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't hurt too the various industries that didn't want to see hemp on the market.
Yeah.
Also, like the apple industry did it during Prohibition because before Prohibition, most apple orchards were geared towards making cider, which is an alcoholic drink. And the way a lot of farms that have been around for over 100 years, the ones that made it through Prohibition, they're the ones that came up with the apple a day keeps the doctor away, and they rebranded their cider apples. They also had to all like the bitter sweets and the bitters and the bitter sharps. They had to cut down all of those trees because you don't want to eat those apples. They are only for cider making. And we lost a lot of like good heirloom apples, but that's besides the point. They were able to save their farms by selling the sweet apples that we have in the fruit market. But it was that campaign of an apple a day keeps the doctor away so that these farms could continue.
Yeah. It's funny.
And also, so I'm sorry, CD made the comment of Charlie bites the fingers, which is an old video. Charlie's 15 now. Just saying.
When you were talking about those heirloom apples going, it was like reminding me of like the nerds crying at the fire of the Library of Alexandria. Like,
yes,
there's still people mourning the fires at the Library of Alexandria.
Can only imagine.
Well, and then I just lost my train of thought. I had something and I totally forgot what it was.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. But today is election day. Hopefully everyone went out and voted. Don't care who you voted for, but
just said you voted.
As long as you voted.
What? I was being funny. Anyway, go on.
But yeah, it's a very important time. I still think that today should be a national holiday.
State of Michigan employees get it off.
Yeah,
it's considered a holiday. I got holiday pay today because I worked.
Yeah, but that's not everyone. It's not. That doesn't make it a national holiday.
It should be a national holiday.
Yeah,
it really should be.
I'm just glad that I'm not going to be. I shouldn't be getting any more political text for at least a few months.
Oh my God! Yes.
I'm so tired of those. I got one today that I'm like, what? It was about Governor Whitmer basically putting forth a transgender agenda and how bad that was, and I'm like I don't need your hate.
Happy.
I'm like, I don't need your hate.
Yeah. Just let people be happy. Like, I have a tendency to fuck with them. I just like to mess. I just like to mess with the people texting me because I know it's legal, but I hate it.
Yeah.
And last year during or not 2 years ago during the presidential election specifically, I almost convinced someone to run away with me.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like, I have a safe place. We don't need to be a slave to the government. I have a place we can go. I need someone to go with me. It was awesome.
$10,000. Here, send it to my PayPal.
Now, you were talking about some of the stuff though, Renee, about that Charlie being 15. They actually said on NPR today that this is the first election where Gen Z can run for Congress.
They can run for Congress? Oof. I mean, so today when I was actually voting, the girl behind me, this was clearly her first time ever voting. She was asking, absolutely ask questions. If you have any questions, ask questions. And she mentioned that it was her first time voting. She was 19. And I'm just like, good for you. But yeah, and I didn't even think about it would she be Gen Z or Elder Alpha?
Gen Z is 97 to 2012.
So yeah, she'd still be technically.
She's still a Gen Z. Okay, she's just a younger Gen Z. Oh. I did not know that little fact.
But yeah, it's been 25 years.
Yeah. So I found a really interesting fact about Gen Z. Like, so you see memes constantly on any social media of like how millennials are super over everything, but they don't necessarily care. Where like Gen X like is the just leave us alone generation, and we don't care. Just leave us alone. Millennials care, but then stopped caring because they had all of these horrible things. Like we watched 3,000 people die when we were 12, and it never got better. And then school shootings, and just like shooting after shooting after shooting, and it never got better. But at the same time, like when it comes to the economy, before we got into the working force, we remember capitalism working. We're old enough to remember capitalism working. You know, you worked hard, you went to college, you worked hard, you got a job, and you were able to like make it. Gen Z got to experience capitalism working. I'm sorry, Gen X got to experience capitalism working. You went to college, you got a job out of college, you worked, and you made money. Millennials got to witness that. We got fucked in 2008. Like I graduated high school in 2008. I graduated college in 2011. Nobody was hiring biologists because all grants got canceled because the economy fucking crashed. But we remember capitalism working. Gen Z has never seen capitalism work because it's always just been an economic crisis for their entire working memory. I went, oh, that's why they want to burn it all to the ground. It all makes sense now.
Yeah, we watched it happen in the sense that the advice I was given in college was dated by the time I graduated. It happened while I was in school.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you get a degree in. They just want you to have a degree, and then you can find a job. It might not be in your field, but you can just get a job.
A couple things that I remember that was beaten into me mentally was, if you go to college, you will make $1 million more over your lifetime.
Oh yeah.
And to that point, 95% of my graduating class, which had over 700 people in it, went to college. I am sitting better than most of the graduates.
Yep.
Because I managed to graduate college without debt, which I have my parents to thank for that and all of that. When my brothers went to college, my brothers are also millennials. And I distinctly remember my father saying to my eldest brother, Peter, and well, both of them, you should go into engineering. I've never heard of an out-of-work engineer. That worked really well when he graduated in 2005 from college, or 2006. He can tell you a whole list of places he worked for because he was a contract engineer and was constantly getting laid off and lost work. He had to postpone his wedding because he got laid off, and then like got a job a week after the wedding would have been, and then lost said job a year later, a week before the new wedding date, but they're like, fuck it, everything's paid for, let's do it. And then got a job 3 days after his wedding. Like the BS poor Pete went through.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, it's intense.
I distinctly remember my father saying, I've never heard of an out-of-work engineer. Because in his day, my dad's a boomer.
Yep.
In his day, that was entirely true. So My
dad was even older. My dad was like the silent generation.
That's Chris's dad.
Yep.
And he was just, his advice amounted to get a job and retire with a pension in 30 years. See ya.
What's a pension?
Yep, exactly.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yep. All right. Well, we should move on to some nerdy stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing nerdy so far. Like, what the hell?
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. It's all
so Ed, you were part of our initial D&D group, and now you've got a little bit more time. Well, from what you were saying before the show, that you kind of found that you have one thing that you can do at a time. You've chosen to do D&D again now, so you're actually running a game, and I really like your setup. I like the way you're using the TV. That's something I've thought about doing. I don't know how well it would work with our setup with lights and everything for our show because I'm afraid of reflection. But I really like that, and I've thought about trying it out. I have a TV that I can use to play with, and I probably will. But so tell us a little bit about the campaign that you're running. Is it D&D or is it Pathfinder?
It is Pathfinder. So after, how do I even start? So with no ill spoken of fifth edition. I just, in some ways, I think the group that I was running my own fifth edition game before the pandemic, we were just not feeling some of the crunch. So most of us are wargamers. We come from playing Warhammer 40K or other sorts of tabletop games where there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of crunch, there's a lot of customization. And so Pathfinder 2 came along, I got really excited because I'm like, I don't want to buy into Pathfinder 1. There's so many books, it's got such a huge history. For those that don't know, when D&D went to 4th edition, they also had been acquired somewhere in, well, during 3rd edition, I think they were acquired by Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, it was during 3rd or 3.5.
And they shifted to that open gaming license. And there was some people that weren't happy about the 4th edition, and they spun off and they created this company.
Some people?
Yeah. Well, no, there was some people in-house at Wizards that weren't happy with the direction of going into 4th, and they actually left the company and spun off and then founded Paizo and created Pathfinder, which is essentially 3.75 is Pathfinder 1. And then they, 2018, I think, came out with their 2nd edition, which is streamlined and a little less complex and a much smaller barrier to entry right now because they don't have more than like a dozen books total. And
I've heard it's still a lot more customizable than D&D.
Yeah, so none of us have played before. Well, let me take it back. So I created, this is a big, long, convoluted story. So anyway, I listened to a podcast and they play Pathfinder 2.0.
And we come right back to
exactly. So this company I started listening to, looking for podcasts back years ago when I wanted to get back into tabletop before I even met you guys and started playing. And I started listening to podcasts of live plays. I got into Critical Role and I got into this other one, which is the Glass Cannon. And they do, at the time, a Pathfinder 1.0 or first edition game. And it was like, on episode 200 and something, and they've just been going through this adventure path, which is pre-written adventures with their own spice added on top. And then the pandemic happened and they started all these new shows, and they started doing this show called New Game Who Dis, where they were just playing 3 episodes of a new game every week, every 3 weeks, once a month they'd switch games.
I love that name.
Yeah, New Game Who Dis.
Now I know where that Discord channel came from.
There you go. Yep. I piggybacked off of that. And so then they added all these other games. Now they've sort of added other actors and people from who also are on Critical Role, or somewhat they moonlight with them, not the main cast, but like some people that are affiliated with that group. I've seen them do other things, like the whole online live play RPG universe has exploded. And so they have now switched to 2E for some of their games, and they also run Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green. If you haven't heard of Delta Green, it's intensely weird game system. It's modern Cthulhu, basically, because you're like a government agency undercover that is fighting to keep you and I from understanding how messed up the universe really is.
That could be fun.
At the expense of your sanity. Like, to get off on a tangent for a second, like they have this system in your character creation where you have to build bonds with people in your life. And when you fail a sanity check, you can literally project your damage onto your bond rather than taking the damage yourself. So it erodes the relationships in your life over time. So like I've listened to this show and watched people's like virtual marriages fall apart. Not between 2 characters, but between a character and an NPC, because they're just like projecting all of this sanity damage, sanity loss onto their loved one, also that the rest of us don't have to go through it. So that's been a great show. But they keep, kind of experimenting, reinventing, and like their Patreon's huge. They've got, I think, 4 of the founders now are full-time employees of the company, quit their jobs. So it's like sort of the dream, right? Living the dream. So anyway, that got me interested in Pathfinder. There's my full circle, back into Pathfinder. And then the second edition came out. I picked up the rule book and I sat on that rule book for 4 years. And so then I was on a Facebook group with this fans of this podcast. And I started a thread where I was like, well, what if we started a Discord? We could start putting games together. Like all of us are complaining, we can't find each other. And so we ended up, some games came out of it. Some people ran one of those Cthulhu games I wasn't involved in, but it was this Discord of like 30 or 40 people who are just like a playground of putting games together and starting new channels for their individual games. And so there's a Pathfinder 2e game I play in that sort of got me and this other guy, Russ, who was in the other Russ, who was in my other D&D game, a little bit of table experience so we could kind of get the rules under our belt, and listening to the game on podcasts got us pretty far. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's just D&D with different rules, right? It's the same concept, the same idea. But this is all to say the customization. My one player who made up a character was struggling because there was so many choices and so many things to go through. But at the end of the day, he compared it to building with Legos. It's like, I feel like I built my character with Legos. Like I had an infinite box of Legos and I could build them exactly the way I wanted to. So yeah, I just eventually got to the point where I was like, I have to give credit where credit's due. My wife actually told me to start a new game. She's like, it's driving me nuts. You don't see anybody. You don't hang out with anyone. I said, well, I don't want to play online. And she's like, well, then have people come over. Like, it's fine. It's twice a week or twice a month, every other week. Just have people come over. It'll be fine. I'm like, are you sure? Like, I didn't even think to ask because I just figured it was a no-go because of the lingering pandemic and risking bringing a bunch of people into the house. And she's just like, no. She's like, the risk benefit is definitely in your favor on this one. Like, just go for it. So I'm like, okay. So yeah, I wouldn't have even thought of it if she hadn't have sort of nudged me towards it. But I think she knows that I need that kind of creative outlet. So that was a lot. I'm gonna take a breath. You ask me questions.
But yeah, so what kind of characters are there in there that the people have made?
We're going to continue to ask you questions.
Yes, by all means. So we have a 4-person party. I've played with 3 of these guys before. The way the group came together is originally it was after my wife was like, yeah, you should play. Then my buddy Russ kept bugging me to run a game. And he's like, you should run something. And he's in this other game as a player with me in this online group. He's like, you should run something. He's like, oh, and I have a friend who's never played any RPGs and he really wants to play. And then I have 2 old friends that we've been playing together for over 30 years. And they always get first dibs whenever I put a game together. So I had to reach out to them and they both jumped at it. And I really wanted to have that classic Golden Girls 4-person archetypal party. So I had my 4, and I also went and borrowed a little bit from the new One D&D formatting that they're doing, which is they've divided the classes into camps or categories, super classes. So I riddled that off to the guys and I said, all right, well, we have this new thing, and they're telling you how they're restructuring a little bit. So we have, what is it? Warriors, mages, priests, and experts.
Yeah.
And so I said, just pick one, and then we'll see how your classes kind of fit. It'll be really somewhat obvious, where people go. My friend John said first out of the gate, he was within seconds of agreeing. He's like, oh, and by the way, I'm playing a cleric. Like, well, why are you so it's like, I just want something simple. My last character was too weird and corner case, and now he's already struggling because he's the same guy that said, I have so many options, I don't know what to do. So his simple cleric turned crazy. So he has a human farmhand who is survivor of this horrible. So Pathfinder's answer to Vecna is a guy called the Whispering Tyrant, which it's interesting when you hear the Pathfinder lore and how much of it Matt Mercer still sort of recycles into Critical Role. So there's an entire region of the Pathfinder universe called Tal'Dorei, which is interesting because or Taldor, which is then he has Tal'Dorei in the Critical Role world. So there's a lot of and then the Whispering Tyrant, I think, was the main villain of the first campaign.
They originally played Pathfinder and they switched to
yeah.
Right. And they switched to D&D 5e for the for the stream.
Yeah, but the bad guy in the first season was the Whisper one.
The Whispering one. So and it turned out to be Vecna, right? Spoilers, sorry, but it's been a number of years. I think I'm saying. So Pathfinder has the same. They call him the Whispering Tyrant, and his name is like Torbafon or something like that. And so this character survived his return, which so the dating system in Pathfinder is really nice. It's instead of 2022, it's 4722. So when you look at dates laid out in the book, you can just always remember that it's within reason. You can just easily translate it. So it's 3 years after the return of this Whispering Tyrant, who wiped out one of the countries nearby, and he's a survivor from that. And then there's an elven warrior. He just made a fighter. He's like, I want something elven fighter, noble, from the homeland of the elves on Galarian, which is the name of the home world, the planet, in Pathfinder. And then the new guy made a goblin rogue, who lives in the town where the story starts, and he's a truth seeker. So he believes that there's some sort of hidden truths about the city or the village, which there are some deep secrets there. And then the last one, Russ had a hard time. He must have made 4 or 5 characters, and he finally settled on a summoner, a gnome summoner who travels around with this undead eidolon, which is what he summons, this kind of zombie-ish creature, which is not really well received in a land struggling with the undead and the rise of this undead warlord in the middle of the world. But he's kind of like medieval fantasy Hot Topic, where he's got this cart full of toys, and he's got this persona like Count Tinkerton, who's like the Count from Sesame Street, where he sells toys, and he's got this zombie assistant that helps him. But he's a gnome, of course. So he's
That's amazing.
Yeah, so he's a fun character. He's still trying to figure out where this eidolon came from, like why. He has no idea. One of the mysteries of running a summoner in the game is you may not have any idea why you have this thing bonded to you, this creature bonded to you. The mechanics are weird. You share a lot of the same action pool. You get a little bit of extra actions, but it's a little clunky. We're still figuring out the bells and whistles. We had one combat in the first session that ended very abruptly when the first swing of the combat was a crit from the fighter's greatsword and cleaved the fire mephit in half. However, town hall was burning down, and they still had to put the fire out. But it went off without a hitch. So
yeah, it's funny actually.
That's awesome.
With where the group is right now. I was running a Halloween adventure for them.
Okay.
And where we had to stop in the middle of a fight, and they basically came into this room, and sitting on the room's all dark with a spotlight on a throne, and there's someone sitting in the throne who looks like a little bit of all of them. Basically, like if all of them had gotten together and had a child that had a little bit of every one of them in it, this is what it would look like. And it stood up and basically said, I'll let you pass if you each give me one memory.
Okay.
And they refused and started fighting. Well, as soon as the fight started, he transformed into Euchariah, the mage. When they started fighting, they killed Euchariah, and he reformed as Halt, the rogue in the group now. And when Halt got killed, he reformed as Grimbolt, the ranger in the group.
Oh no! And eventually,
so then,
everyone, I'm assuming.
That's where the fight ended,
because we stopped after Grimbolt.
Yeah, and Klimbrum did something.
Yeah, so there's been this theme with hags lately, and I pissed off a really old hag. Her name is Shelly Soil Cheeks, and I need to preface that I no longer work in the alcohol industry. I now work for Eagle, and I spend a lot of time in the car. I drive just shy of 4,000 miles a month. Oh, so there's a lot of thinking time in the car. A lot of thinking time. And I kind of got concerned because I'm more concerned about my own like mental state because I feel like a lot of shit I think about is super, super dark. And I was envisioning doing this to specifically Shelly Soil Cheeks. But this fucking thing keeps turning into all of us. So I did it on it instead. I have a rod, I have an immovable rod. Okay. So before it was able to retransform into any of us, I was also top of the initiative order. Excuse me. I took the immovable rod and I shoved it in its mouth to where it was hitting the back of it, and I engaged it.
So you're pinned to the ground.
So it's pinned to the ground in its mouth so it can't speak.
Oh gosh. I'll see how you get out of this one.
Yeah.
What level are you guys now? How far are you guys come along?
10.
10? Are we 10?
You're 10.
Okay. We're 10 now. And so what I originally envisioned of doing to Shelly was this immovable rod thing, and then taking iron spikes and then like shoving them in her hands and pinning her to the ground. Shit gets dark.
Yeah, she's mad because they got away. Basically, what it is.
They got away and they threatened my family.
But yeah, they so part of the thing that happens after you left was they actually found out more about Euchariah's background.
Yes.
And that he was raised by this woman, Madeline. Well, Madeline, it turns out Madeline's actually a hag.
A dusk hag.
A dusk hag. Who had left her coven and basically escaped with Euchariah. And these other two have been looking for her and him, and for reasons unknown. Euchariah didn't know. He's got a little bit of an idea now. But and then I used that for when Bob came in with his ranger, because he one of his favorite enemies is Faye. And he's an older character. He's an older dwarf. He's like 150 years old. And he's like the oldest out of the entire group. And
yeah.
So he keeps joking around that he's been searching for these hags and hunting them for 40 years. They almost killed him, left him for dead, basically, and he's been hunting him for 40 years. So whenever they complain about, that the hags got away or something like that, he's like, 40 years! It's been 4 days for you guys! 40 years!
Yeah, and now Grimbold's all giddy because at the last encounter, so our actual fight with the hags, so we found the hags, they were stealing children, and I took my iron bands of Bolero and trapped Shelly in it, and then they bamfed away. Oh, no. And stole my iron bands with them, and want my iron bands back. But I didn't think about
you got your iron bands back.
I did, in pieces with a very threatening note.
Oh no!
So now Grimbold's all giddy, like, they want you. They're going to come to us. And now, because and then like fast forward, months practically, and they invaded one of Climbrum's dreams. They actually took one of her memories and like turned her worst memory into an even worse nightmare.
Oh no.
And ultimately like inadvertently threatened her family. So now Climbrum is like, come at me. So Climbrum is not stable by any stretch right now. She is not in a good place. Bro. Yeah. You don't threaten her family or the people she loves. And yeah. So I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the hags. I'm very excited for the hags, and the hags probably won't show up for a year.
But yeah, we're still having a lot of fun with the game. It's still going good. Everyone seems to be having a good time. Pete had a great moment and almost took out one of the cameras.
Yes.
At one point, he got so excited he threw his arms up in the air and smacked one of the cameras and like knocked it out of alignment and sat there going like this on the pole.
It was crucial that he got that.
Yeah. And Renee called
It's the
it.
only way we got out.
Renee called a natural 20 and he rolled it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think that was the impressive part, was the fact that I called the nat 20.
Here it comes.
Well, he did that on his win strike, wasn't it? Against
Specifically against the big baddie.
Yeah. He just got, it was the first time he'd used Steel Wind Strike, which is a 6th level spell that does like 6d10 damage to like 5 targets. And you have to roll to hit for each target, and he was up against the big bad that had escaped from them once before, and he actually critted on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, they so as I've been developing this kind of storyline and all the work that I've been doing, I've been trying to experiment with some things I've been doing in the past, but also some DM pitfalls I've fallen into in the past. And one of the things I realized that I do is I tend to escalate quickly so that I run out of anywhere to go. By the time characters hit, like in my last D&D game, we got to about 10th level and things were getting pretty ludicrous already. And I'm like, where do I go from here? Like, I've already taught myself every time I do something, I'm just like next and then next and then next. And so Pathfinder has a system of adventure paths, which are designed to take your characters in a module format through 6 books, usually, or 3 sometimes, but the 6-book format will go from level 1 to level 20. And it's designed that way, and it slows me down because I can throw all sorts of weird stuff in the cracks and in between with my own homebrew, because I can't just run in a module. Like, I have to throw stuff over the top of it. But I've already noticed the number of times where just now I'm planning the 2nd session, I've already started seeing how, had I not had the framework of this module, I might have done things sooner that I think is better to have a slow burn. So like, I would just, I don't know what it was. And it was just, there's jokes about, I ran a Vampire the Masquerade game for like a decade, and it was ludicrous at points because I was running out of ideas. I literally jumped the shark, I think, at one point. Ever meet my friend John? Ask him about the technomancer that created the cybernetic squid that lived in the Detroit River. That was a low moment for my creative genius. So I think that was more the mage game, because we crossed over into the same universe but played different characters because we'd get bored and retire or put like a vampire off to the side. And so running this has been fun. I also took a page out of some of the podcasts that I listen to, has kind of a technique where, borrowing from film or television, you have scenes that I narrate that the players are privy to, but their characters aren't. So that there's just these cut scenes of weird shit that's happening in the universe or in the world. And I started off the story. So I told them all, okay, the only thing I need you to do to make your characters is that there's this guy, he's this old wizard, he's a hermit now, and he wasn't always a hermit, and you need to have some connection to him, whether it was a month ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago, if you're old enough, good, bad, ugly, whatever. It's just that you have met him at some point in your past. I don't care how, like, just write it into your story. And then in the opening cutscene, before they've even started, I killed him off. And so the game starts where they each get invited because they've been named as beneficiaries in his will, and he has his estate. They've inherited his estate, and that's how they're brought together. And so the 4 of them are brought together, ironically, from different parts, where they're all told to show up on the same day, all delivering this message. So they're still kind of weird. Like, how did we all end up here at the same time? When I was a week away, you were 2 days away, you live in the village, and we all show up at the morticians at the same time, at the same day. I'm like, well, there's probably a reason for that. Like, keep digging, keep exploring. So, and then I had my, my best Alec Guinness impression to give this kind of magic mouth message to these guys that broke all the rules. He probably had to cast magic mouth 100 times to get his whole message out. but it's like this magic box, and it's sort of like this swirling Obi-Wan Kenobi thing, and like his image appears, and he gives them this long message about his student who, you know, was a pupil of mine before he turned to evil, and you know, they've got to pick up where he left off, and you know, he's begging them for their help. He wanted to watch them grow, and become the heroes he needed them to be, but now it's too late. And so there's this whole added layer that I've woven into the current story about this fallen student of his that wants to join the Whispering Tyrant. And hopefully none of them are paying attention to this, but you might decide that he's better than the Whispering Tyrant and wants to overthrow him at some point in the long game. But there's enough in there, and there's all these other modules, and there's this thing called
you underestimate my power.
Exactly, and he wants to overthrow. But I'm weaving in all these other stories, and you know, it's a lot of fun. I hope it continues to pan out. I did play around with Roll20 yesterday and got 2 instances working on my computer. It works really well. So I run it as a GM on one side, and for the players on another instance that I can put on the television. So for those that don't know, I sort of created a little thing to hold the television steady on its back, and then put a screen over the top of it to protect the screen.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you had like a plexiglass or something over top of it.
Yeah, I bought a cheapy frame at Walmart and tore it apart for pieces. It's not the best. I think if I had more sort of our carpentry resources and skills. My one player is an engineer who loves to build stuff. I keep trying, like nudging him a little bit, like, design us something cool. He's like, no, this works fine. I'm like, damn it. Not what I was hoping for. But, you know, it works fine for now. It's, you know, it does have a little protection on the top of it. It's a thin layer of kind of clear plastic. And, you know, it worked well. They could move the miniatures around the boxes. I just have to zoom in enough so that the boxes on the screen are roughly about an inch. Realize as long as you're just using boxes as 5 feet, it doesn't matter if they're exactly an inch. You know, it can be, as long as they're 5 feet and your guy fits inside of it, it seems pretty okay to me. So far so good. And I've done the polygon reveals. I've been playing around with getting my polygon reveal skills up so I can open up sections. The next thing they're going to is this abandoned citadel. And as an aside, one of the things I'm most excited about is I asked all my players to kind of come up with goals for their characters. Like, where do you see your character? What do you want them to do? And one of them wants to be a brewer, the guy who's a brewer in real life. His last name is Miller. He's a light cleric. We're like, wow, he's right, you know. So he wants to settle down someplace where he can actually like provide. And the other guy, the elf, wants to create land and have like a castle. Well, by the end of the first module, you actually, this castle, this citadel that you're going through, the players end up inheriting it as a base of operations. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, it fits right in. And like, the one guy had stories, you know, grew up with these stories of gold dragons and how important they are in his own family history. And so I was going to have this figurine that was part of the estate that they inherited, that I haven't even exactly decided. I wanted to throw something else in, so I had a MacGuffin to work with later, but I have no idea what it's going to do. And it was originally like a crow statue. And I'm like, wait a minute, I could just quickly make this into a gold dragon statue. So he's all invested and interested. And, you know, the goblins, there was a war a generation ago, and now goblins are slowly becoming accepted parts of society. So the trash-eating goblin, he's kind of lives on the fringes of society. So it's interesting. And then there's this undead connection, and this guy who's a necromancer for good. He's like, I think there's a way to have necromancy in a positive light. He's convinced that you can be a good person and still do necromancy. So we'll see how that pans out over the course of the chronicle. So, you know, and I think Pathfinder is kind of
Revivify is technically a necromantic spell, isn't it?
All cleric, like healing spells, is necromancy.
Yeah.
necromancy. Yeah. So that's his argument, but not many people are going to buy into that. It's a bit semantics, right?
Yeah.
Especially given the fall of this area. I mean, the setting is so rich and huge. So I think what Paizo did that D&D picked a different tact. D&D developed like a lot of multiversal worlds, and Paizo threw all of their eggs into one basket, really. And so there's so much depth in the one world that I could carve out a section. I'm looking at the map I have on the wall over here. I carve out a section that's maybe 10% of the world and say these 3 or 4 nations in this area are all that kind of really matter for this campaign right now. Maybe they'll go somewhere else later, but it's kind of fun in that. So there's so much depth because there's such a long history. And there's tons of history in D&D too, but I think they are more apt, like with the new Dragonlance, which I'm actually still excited about. Like I still buy D&D books, even though I'm not really actively playing, because they're gorgeous. And I bought the Spelljammer ones.
Oh yeah, Chris's are right over there on the table.
Somewhere over there in the dark. So yeah, it's fun. It's also been fun kind of playing the game and then running it the next week, learning a little bit about the system, the crit system, because it's funny you mentioned critting. I don't know, are you familiar with how crits work in Pathfinder? Have you heard? No. So there's 4 degrees of success and failure in Pathfinder. There's critical success, failure, and critical failure, which you'd imagine.
Okay. Yeah.
You crit by exceeding the difficulty by 10.
Okay.
And you crit fail by missing it by 10 or more. A 20 moves you, so you have those 4 categories. A natural 20 will automatically move you up one of those rungs, so it makes a crit. But you can crit without rolling a 20. So if it's really easy, like say, so that's how he crit against that Mephit. It was like a 17 armor class. He rolled a 28 to hit. That's a crit, even though he didn't roll a 20. So, and then the crits are nasty too, because you double everything, including your skill bonus or your attribute. So you roll once, add all your modifiers, and then double it.
Okay.
So it's pretty gross.
It's the old 2E version.
It is, yeah. It's 2Es, yeah. And it's and then the crit system is just nice because you can crit on everything. You can crit fail on everything. And the saving throws and skill checks, and they give you extra kind of bonuses. But it gives you a chance to do everything, where he's like, you need a nat 20 to do it, but you can go for it. And the scaling is crazy too. Like I've noticed as you get to upper levels, having difficulties in armor classes that are like in the high 20s, mid 30s is really common, because we have the proficiency bonus in 5e. They have a skill system where you have trained, expert, master, and legendary, and that's like 2, 4, 6, 8 to your whatever skill. It's the same, almost the same skills, alertness, athletics, that kind of stuff. But you also add your level. So your bonuses are like D20 plus your level plus your training. So it's like, if you're trained, it's +3, which is pretty much equivalent to proficiency bonus, right? But if you're a master, you're at +4, no, 2, 4, 6, +6, and then you have to be at least like 8th level to be a master, so you're adding another 8, so you're like +14 to that roll, plus whatever your skill is. So if it's a dexterity bonus skill and you're +4 there, you're like +18 to the roll. So everything's just scales differently. But at the same token, it's the same idea, because you still have to roll a d20 and add it.
So armor classes have to be a lot higher than in there.
Like my starting armor class for my psychic, I think, is a 16, and he's not even wearing armor.
Okay.
And he's got mage armor. I'm looking at the benefit of sitting at my computer is I can pull up my character sheet for him. Armor class 16, good memory. And he's fun. Like the psychic abilities are really fun, and they've got some interesting, there's probably 24 different ways to play the same class, just built right out of the gate, because you pick these different categories of things when you're putting them together. He's a fetchling, which is kind of fun, from the Shadowlands, Shadow Plane. Humans that were raised in Shadow. Doesn't know how he got here. Now our DM wants us to write a backstory of like a cutscene of like some bit of our history. I'm like, oh great, I gotta come up with something.
So you mentioned One D&D. So have you been following the releases of those?
A little bit here and there. How about you guys?
I've been following them a little bit. I haven't read this latest one. I was kind of looking at it a little bit earlier. What are your initial impressions on what the changes are that they're doing?
I mean, it's interesting because if you watch, depending on who you talk to, so you watch the Pathfinder forums and Facebook groups. The Pathfinder Facebook groups are all basically looking at One D&D and saying like, yeah, we knew all along that you guys needed this stuff, because they're adding components that Pathfinder 2e already has. All of these conditions that they want to layer on, this extra feats. I mean, Pathfinder's a feat-based game, right? Every level you get at least 2 feats, one for your class and one for a skill or something like that. And so there's a lot of like superiority-ishness about it, which I don't love. But I can see what they're doing. I think in general, I haven't really looked too far into the classes. But I know like some of the broad strokes of things is interesting. I like how they're playing around and they're willing to kind of peel back the curtain and say, okay, you'll get a hero point if you crit. No, you'll get a hero point if you roll a natural 1. You know, like let's play with both of those. So they're willing to screw around. I'm a little concerned about how dodgy they're being about calling it a new edition. Like I have a feeling it's a bit of a bait and switch. Like tell us, oh yeah, by the way, this is really a new edition, or the public, because they never called it 5th edition on paper. We called it that. The fans called it 5th edition. They wanted to call it, what was it, next D&D Next or whatever it was originally when it came out.
And that's what they're talking about calling this is D&D Next. That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
But
so good luck. We'll just call it 6th edition or 5 or whatever.
So far, I hate it. I think it's awful. I think it has way too much. I think it has way too much of the 4E feel, and a lot of the stuff that they're bringing in is stuff that they used in 4E, and I don't like that. I know there's a lot of things that they're trying to do, like they're trying to get rid of the short rest.
Okay.
They want that gone. I don't like the fact that almost everybody can switch out spells every time you have a long rest. Not just spells that you know, but you can switch out spells you know after a long rest. Like, oh, you know what? I don't want Tasha's Hideous Laughter anymore. I want Magic Missile. And now I know Magic Missile. Without a spell book, without anything. Bards can do it. Like bards know
I can
songs.
understand spontaneous casters like clerics that pray to a god.
Yeah, they've always been able to pick their entire spell list.
Right.
But arcane casters, you learn certain spells. Even sorcerers, they have an innate magical ability. They don't have spell books and stuff, but they only know how to cast a finite number of spells.
Right.
They don't wake up one morning and forget how to cast one and learn how to cast something else.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, like, I was reading about bards today, and bards can switch out their spells at every long rest.
See, on the other hand, like when we're playing, we're trying to get our head around coming from 5e to Pathfinder. It's if you want to cast a spell multiple times a day, you have to memorize multiple instances of it. It's like 1st edition D&D.
Well, even 3.5 did that.
3.5 did that. So they've retained that for Pathfinder 2. So my history, I played like 5 seconds of 2nd edition, and then we went off into other stuff. And then I came back for I read a lot of books for 3rd edition. I perused them. I almost bought into 4th, and then 5th finally sucked me back in. So I have this big gap in my D&D, whatever. So when I say it's first, to me, I always harken back, far back. But yeah, so it's interesting. Like my friends, like, why do I have a heal? Because then they try to work around it. Like if you're a healing cleric, because you can be heal or harm as your divine font. If you're a heal cleric, you get like your god gives you 3 healing spells a day on top of your normal spell repertoire, or it's your charisma modifier in extra spells a day of just heal, but they have to be healing spells. And then all your other spells are up to you, however you want to choose them. And so he's like, why do I have 3 instances of the same spell? I said, because you have a +3 charisma, and when you burn those, they're gone for the day. So you want to heal 3 times a day, you got to prepare it 3 times. So you want to cast Fireball 4 times a day, and you have to prepare them at different levels. So if you want a 4th level Fireball, it's got to take a 4th level spell slot. So that's one thing I like for D&D. I think it's better. It's just less complicated. Like it's harder to get my head around. But
and CD said, can't you just have magic refill potions? No, there's no mana potions in D&D.
No mana potions in D&D. Oh, get a good night's sleep and do your morning prep.
Yep. But we've talked about D&D almost exclusively, and I wanted to talk about a couple other things too. So Wakanda Forever opens this Friday. I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm seeing a lot of really good things. I saw a thing on the Nerdist that basically said that it handles, what was it? Wakanda Forever tackles grief, healing, and breaking traditions.
Okay.
And they said that it balances grief, healing, futurism, and breaking traditions while paying homage to the late Chadwick Boseman. So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope I have a feeling they're going to do a good job with it. That comes out Friday. Something we haven't talked about in this show that's coming up that I'm actually looking forward to. While I'm not a huge Tim Burton fan, I am looking forward to checking out Wednesday.
Okay.
The new Addams Family spin-off type show where Wednesday Addams goes off to boarding school. And they just released the full opening credits. Danny Elfman and Tim Burton did, because Danny Elfman, who is a favorite of Tim Burton's, sure, and I think it's just a great score writer to begin with, did the opening credit music. And it's a little busy. I watched it. It's a little busy, but it's very Burton and very Elfman, is what I will say. But overall, I think that show looks like it could be really entertaining. I watched the trailer for that a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I know you probably don't have a lot of time for TV, do you?
I mean, I do. I think what happens is, I've said it before, like I have more time than, like, I think one of the things that happens in the field that people want to say, like, they're busy all the time. And so I try to differentiate between like free time and like actual effective time. Like sometimes I'm just exhausted. So I end up watching a lot of stupid television that has nothing to do with anything cutting edge, because I need to be able to fall asleep. And so it's not like I'm super busy, but it's I'm busy enough. And I think one of the things I need to do is, I have to prioritize. So I actually have a list on my phone of stuff I haven't gotten to watch yet.
We have that too.
I did watch Rings of Power. I did watch.
We're in the middle. What you watched? What?
The joking acronym Hot D, House of the Dragon.
Oh.
That I enjoyed both of those.
Yeah, I watched House of the Dragon. Renee and I are in the middle of Rings of Power, because she's not a Game of Thrones fan.
Okay.
So I watched that, and
I got bored with the books. I got bored with the show.
Yeah, I'll say, well, I'm not a Matt Smith fan. I think he's done a good job, and I was really skeptical about him being Daemon Targaryen. But the third episode, I think it was, where he doesn't have a speaking line.
Yeah.
And but he is the best thing about that entire episode. Though the way the acting he does, just with, I mean, he's got a lot of face to work with, but his facial expressions.
Sure does.
His whole forehead, and he has no eyebrows. It really bothers me.
Poor man with no eyebrows. How
so,
can you not know he's Skynet, right? In that terrible movie.
You never know what he's feeling.
But anyway, I enjoyed it. I thought the show got better as it went along in House of the Dragon.
Yeah, I think the whole spiel anyway, what I've seen is that they intended it to be this first season was to set the stage. They had the wherewithal to, or they had the security, right? Like we've entered this era where there's enough clout for these shows that they can waste a whole season setting up the second season.
Yeah, I think they said there's going to be 4 seasons of this.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, it's just crazy that they could burn a whole season doing that.
Well, and they've gone through like 3 actresses for Rhaenyra,
right, and a couple for what's her name?
Yeah,
Allison.
Yeah.
So it's funny to kind of, funny to bring us full circle a little bit, but I wanted to mention, so during the Halloween time, I get into my Halloween movie kick, and I try to catch up on stuff I missed. And Amazon, I think it's on Amazon, it might be on AMC Plus, I can't remember, but they have this In Search of Darkness documentary series. The first 2 are out. It's the history of 80s horror films.
Oh, that'd be cool.
The third one is, I believe, in sort of Kickstarter phase. Like they've all been funded by Kickstarter. And they have one called In Search of Tomorrow, which I haven't seen yet, which is about 80s science fiction movies. But they interview people from these movies and they talk about the history, and they go through year by year. So they start with 1980, then 81, 82, and they do the best movies from those years. And they're fascinating. So I rewatched them this Halloween with my phone, taking notes about movies I hadn't seen. And so there was one I really wanted to see. I went to look, it was on like Pluto TV or something for free. But then when I went to Pluto, like when I searched on my TV, it came up. I click on the link and I get to Pluto and it's gone. And I'm like, what the hell happened? But it's called The Keep. And Ian McKellen's in it, to bring it full circle, from like from like 1983. And it's one of his first kind of early movie roles. And it's about these, it's a bunch of character actors. I think Gabriel Byrne's in it. Victor Paschow or something, who's like that classic, always plays the Nazi, kind of somewhat scarred lower face guy. He's been in a ton of movies back then. They're all Nazis, right? And they're guarding this citadel. And there's this thing inside of it. And they're just like, do not open the door. And the whole plot, and I still haven't seen it, but I like saw enough of the snippets from, because they're talking about it in this movie, that it's like, all right, that's going on the list. And I finally got to watch the original Day of the Dead.
That's a good one.
Focusing on it, like I've seen so much of it, but I hadn't really focused on the plot. That's really good. But like I can't find the original Dawn of the Dead anywhere streaming. And I got really, for a while, into there's this horror host, Joe Bob Briggs, who talks a lot about the death of physical media and about how dangerous it is. And I'm like, never really experienced it before until I start looking for a movie that I can't even pay to rent. It's just someone decided it needed to go away, or no one picked it up. And so, yeah, so my little list has been these kind of nerdy.
Have you seen Day of the Triffids?
No, what is that?
You should absolutely add that one onto the list.
The Triffids?
Day of the Triffids. To this day, my mom and I call asparagus Triffids. They're essentially aliens come and take over the world, but they look like giant asparagus, and it's hysterical.
So it's like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah, kind of. It's awesome. I highly recommend it. We actually caught that on, it's super early in my memory. I just remember the host being a werewolf. I don't know what the show was, but it was like the host that hosted movies, and he was a werewolf. That's all I remember. It's kind of like I've seen snippets of the Ghoul.
Yeah, I grew up with the Ghoul. Even though he was based out of Cleveland, we got him here a lot.
Yeah, my generation, I guess, was the werewolf. Couldn't tell you anything else about him, but it was on his show. That was on like Friday night or Saturday night, starting at 11.
Scary.
And he put on.
I remember.
He put on old horror movies, and one of them was Day of the Triffids. And what was funny was what was it? TV Guide actually had the movies flipped. So the first week it said Day of the Triffids, but the movie that they actually showed was The Man Without a Brain, which we didn't watch, but we thought it was going to be Day of the Triffids, so we recorded it. And then it ended up not being it. And then the following week it said Man Without a Brain and State of the Triffids.
Nah. Whoops.
Oops.
You know
Someone fucked up.
Who's still going, you can still watch, is Sven Gulli. He's been going strong for 40 plus years.
Nice.
Still working out of Chicago. You can
Wolfman Jack, that's what it was.
Oh yeah, he wasn't an actual Wolfman. He was a DJ.
Yep.
Oh, I can
Wolfman Jack.
draw a picture of him.
He was a
But
very
that is
famous
the
DJ.
extent
from the
of my
80s.
knowledge.
So when I wanted to mention really quick before when we were talking about Matt Smith, it reminded me too. I have these deep misgivings. I watched the end of the current Doctor, and I don't know if you guys are caught up on Doctor Who at all.
No, not at all. We're like seasons behind. But I've heard about Jodie Whittaker's regeneration.
Yes, the mystery regeneration.
Yeah, the not so surprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've heard that Disney has picked up Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. I did hear that.
Oh, I didn't hear that's one more stone in Disney's gauntlet.
Yes. And apparently, I've heard mixed things everywhere from they're not exercising any creative control to they want some oversight. Regardless, there's talk that the budget is tripling. So the money that they have currently to make Doctor Who is being tripled going forward. So
they gotta leave some of the cheese in though.
Yeah. I mean, most of the new stuff is pretty polished. There isn't a whole lot of cheese left.
That's true.
It's pretty polished, but
I go back and watch some of those old ones that I watched when I was in high school, and I'm like, man, the cheese in this.
So good. So good. As I watched, so Pluto TV has been our new sort of in-house kind of like free TV, which is inundated with too many political ads right now, but they have a Doctor Who channel.
Hopefully that stops tomorrow.
Hopefully it stops right now, but they have a Doctor Who channel and it's like the first through the 7th Doctor. And they're all reruns, and they don't have them all. They just have some episodes in every month.
He was so angry. He's an angry old man, those first 3.
Well, and it was brilliant because then, I don't know, like spoilers, but the regeneration episode, The Power of the Doctor, where she regenerates, they bring back a bunch of old companions from the original era, like Ace, and I think it's Perry. No, it's not Perry. Tegan. Anyway.
Oh, Tegan.
They bring back some others, and they bring back one of the original companions from the first Doctor, one of the guys who traveled with him. He was still alive. The actor's like in his 90s. They bring back all these people. They bring back a bunch of them, and they bring back all the Doctors. So there's like 5 Doctors in this episode. It's freaking amazing. And then they have the one guy that's been playing, the guy that was in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
They have had playing William Hartnell.
Yep.
That's the first Doctor. He's in it. And then Peter Colin Baker's in it, and Sylvester McCoy's in it, and Peter Davison's in it. And I can't remember the guy that played the 8th Doctor, who
Eccleston?
No, he's 9th.
Oh, before Eccleston. Who was only from the TV movie.
Yeah, the ill-fated TV movie.
Ill-fated TV movie. Who he's done a ton of stuff. I guess he's had a huge Doctor Who career, but I don't follow the audio books. Yeah. He's done a ton of radio programs for that. But anyway, so that's my excitement.
Yeah, Tom Baker said he wasn't in it. He was asked, but he turned it down because he's, as he put it, I'm old.
I do worry about him because when he was in the 110 at the 50th, he was a heavy, sort of robust older guy. The last time I saw him on his birthday announcement, he looked like he'd lost a ton of weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like 88 or something like that now too. So he's
skinny as a rail. He looks really skinny now. So I don't know, like at that age, if you lose that much weight, I don't think that's
usually not a good thing.
Not a vanity project here, at that point.
Yeah.
So
he hasn't really come back for many of them anyway. Even when they did the 5 Doctors back in the day, he was stuck in time
Yep, with
and wasn't able to
Ramona
make
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah.
I recently saw that one. They just used some extra footage from a canceled episode
Yeah.
to show him doing something, and he got sucked off into some vortex. Yeah.
Nice.
So I was going to ask you guys a question, and I don't know if this is appropriate or if you have other topics you wanted to cover. And I know we're running long, but we've been talking.
No, we're not. Have you seen their episodes lately?
Not really. But I have a question about traditions and holidays. So trying to develop either movie or nerd or weird other traditions. We have certain films that we watch for certain times of the year. Like the Thanksgiving is The Godfather. It's like this all tradition.
God, I need to see that.
So we watch at least Godfather 1. I'm going to ignore that you said that and just move on.
It's on the list. It's on both lists. I have 2 lists now.
2 lists. And then like, for some reason, I remember years ago, Heather and I were sitting around like trying to find something to watch on Easter of all days. And we're flipping through the channels or flipping through Netflix. And we're like, you know what sounds like a really appropriate Easter movie? The Exorcist. You know, yeah, you're right. So now I
haven't seen that either.
You watch The Exorcist. But there's like my buddy John, he swears by Shaun of the Dead as his Christmas Day favorite.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Such a good movie.
It's such a good movie, but I've never really associated it. Like, I don't know why. I'm like, why Christmas Day? He's like, I don't know. It just became a habit. And, you know, like I can come up with explanations for the others, but I can't come up with anything else. So anyway, I don't know if there's a question in there or a discussion in there, but it's sort of like, what do you do when it's the holidays?
Usually since Renee and I have been together, we're always at family stuff. So it's and it's not a lot of stuff. And even like 4th of July and things like that, her grandmother has people over because she likes hosting on the holidays. She wants the family together to serve spaghetti. But
it's the most American food in Alma's mind. She learned it here.
But yeah, it's
I don't like spaghetti on the 4th of July, man.
Emmett honors Jug Band Christmas is what CD said. I'm like, Die Hard is my Christmas movie.
Yeah, Die Hard's our Christmas movie.
Because it is a Christmas movie, goddammit. I don't care
Nightmare
when it was
Before
released.
Christmas is my Halloween and Christmas movie.
What's that?
Nightmare Before Christmas is my Halloween and Christmas movie because it's multifaceted like that.
Speaking of which, before I forget, Night Before Christmas, I saw someone took a Great Unclean One, if you know that model from Warhammer, turned it into Oogie Boogie.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
It's amazing. She ended up using milliput and like some actual burlap sack and pressed it into it to make the pattern and then laid it over the plastic. I can send you the video for it. It's hilarious.
That sounds incredible.
She does a really good job. But anyway, go on. Sorry.
That's all right. And then of course, I mean, I still watch Christmas Story. I'm actually looking forward to the Christmas Story Christmas that's coming out, where they're bringing all the actors back, and Ralphie's bringing his kid home.
But I hate A Christmas Story.
Yeah, Renee did not like A Christmas Story although you didn't like Better Off Dead either.
But I quote Better Off Dead, which tells me I secretly liked it. It had redeeming factors. So honestly, the thing that kills Better Off Dead is the $2 kid. Fucking hate him. It's a waste of time and a waste of energy in the entire story. I can't stand him.
It's the dumbest part of the whole movie.
He ruins the movie for me. I don't like filler content. It's why I got bored with not Lord of the Rings, the other one. Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Same thing with like the books. Like I got bored in the books. I just spent 200 pages reading about this character who died and did nothing for the story.
Yeah.
Why did you waste my time? Anyway, so I think what happened with A Christmas Story is the fact that I watched it as an adult for the first time. I watched it only about 6 or 7 years ago, but it had been hyped up so much. Like, it's a great movie. It's an awesome movie. It's a great movie. Love the movie. It's really endearing. Then I watched it, and it was such a letdown.
Well,
and I'm like, this movie is garbage.
Well,
These are terrible parents. You get your kids taken away from you when you literally shove soap in their mouth.
That's
so
the thing.
It's a combination of I saw it as an adult, It's a generational thing.
It's a generational thing. Your generation has a whole different outlook on that than mine, because
mine,
that was still something I never had it done, but it was threatened a lot.
Yeah, the thing with Better Off Dead, the whole opening sequence, I'm like, this man has a very serious mental illness and he needs help because he's 2 steps away from murder. He is 2 steps away from kidnapping and murder.
Yeah.
But it's
Lane,
true.
Lane never would have done that.
You don't know that. That's how it starts. But like the stupid thing of like the food like inching off the table was fucking hysterical. And Booger, Booger, like
the
makes
Booger,
the movie for me. Of the, I know it's not that's his character in Revenge of the Nerds, but it's the same actor. Of like, this mountain's pure snow. Do you have any idea
street value of this mountain?
I can't feel my left side.
He's like shaking his right arm. It's great. Like those moments are awesome, but the whole like and like the whole like tentacles, and teeth, big difference.
Yeah, they do a lot.
Lines.
There's in Search of Darkness documentary, they have what I think is it Ken Watanabe? He was in 16 Candles.
Oh yeah.
Like he was like the every Asian dude, back in the 80s. And they talk a lot about like the final girl phenomena. They sort of address a lot of what Renee is talking about, like with 40 years of hindsight, how does this stuff hold up? And so he's talking about Asian representation in the film. The women are talking misogyny and how it's portrayed. And then there's this debates, like there's some of the women who were in these movies that felt that what we call misogyny today was empowering and that they were fighting and that they were fighting back. And like others say is like, no, this is really uncomfortable. I would never want my kids to watch these movies that I was in, like it's interesting.
And that, so CD just mentioned like Ralphie, aggravated assault. Yeah, he attacks someone. That's not good. Honestly, Revenge of the Nerds, flat out rape. That's rape. That's not good.
Pretty rapey movie.
It's a very rapey movie. It's not good.
Yep.
Old James Bond, very rapey. Very rapey. Do not like Sean Connery, James Bond at all. Very rapey, not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't
really
be
watching the James Bond marathon on New Year's Day, I take it.
Well, the thing is like I do love James Bond movies, but it was one of those like I didn't realize this until like I became an adult and started learning, just became more enlightened in college and more aware, and also we had a major like societal change or a shift of like these things are not okay. They were okay before, but they are not. Rape is never okay. But
they weren't okay. They just weren't fought against or pushed back.
Yes. And it's one of those just like kind of like how you grow as a person and how perspectives change. I'm just like, ooh, this is not good. Like, it's not good.
But in answer to what we were talking about,
yes.
Other than like Die Hard around Christmas, there's around Christmas, not necessarily on Christmas Day, but around Christmas. There really aren't
Christmas
any
Day
movies,
for us is very busy.
Yeah, there really aren't any movies that I can think of that I watch at any specific time of year.
I don't know.
So it's not so much a specific time of year, but it's like the movie I always watch when I'm sick, because I know Chris has one as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2, and for whatever reason, they kind of have a similar theme, and I have no idea why. I just really like these movies. I love watching Finding Nemo when I'm sick. It just makes me feel good and it makes me smile. Same thing with Ponyo. I love that movie. It's not a complicated story. It's just a fun story that makes me smile and makes me feel better. Chris's sick movie is Hackers.
Yeah.
You always watch Hackers when you're sick.
Interesting.
Yep.
I was thinking about Elf for Christmas. That's actually a fair.
I don't like that movie. Well, the movie's good. I'm not a Will Ferrell fan. I'm just not. Especially when he's the lead. I'm fine with him being a supporting actor. But when he's the lead, I'm just not a huge fan.
I like certain ones. Like, I thought Eurovision was way better than I expected.
I did enjoy Eurovision. Specifically once it's 40 minutes into the movie, because it stops being a Will Ferrell movie. And then it becomes a song contest movie.
But yeah, overall, I'm not a big fan of him either. But yeah, so really, there's not a whole lot that I have.
Anchorman was fine. Great movie.
But one of the things I wanted to get to before we do sign off, because we are getting long. Electric Ronin wanted to know, Wings Kook, how did your costume work out for YumaCon?
Oh, I'll post pictures. It worked out really well. A lot of people actually recognized our group, so we didn't have the entire cast because we didn't have enough of us. But you had me as a gender bend, Professor Plum. We had a
Ed. So you may not know. Her and her friends went to YumaCon as characters from the movie Clue.
Yeah, specifically the movie Clue, and it's been like 14 years for all of us since we've been. Well, 14 years. It was 14 for me, 14 for a couple others, and like 5 for the others. I stopped going to YumaCon when it moved to Cobo or Huntington Place. Cobo Hall. It just got too big for me, and I don't like Cobo Hall as a venue. And going to YumaCon, it reminded me why I don't like Cobo Hall as a venue, because it's all concrete and it really hurts. It really hurts your feet and it hurts your knees. But it was a lot of fun because YumaCon is like specifically an anime. It's anime and gaming, but it's mostly an anime-driven convention versus like a Comic-Con, which is like everything nerd. This is much more anime focused with a lot of comics and a lot of other things thrown in, but it's more anime based. And we went as the cast of Clue. We had me as a gender bend Professor Plum. We had Mrs. Peacock, Miss Scarlet, Mrs. White, and Mr.
Green.
Mr. Green.
Okay.
I think that was all of us.
And Yvette.
And Yvette. That's right. We had 6 of us. And it was a lot of fun because everyone like our age and older knew exactly who we were. And because we weren't anime based and we were different, we had our pictures taken a ton. And people loved it. And it was a lot of fun. I actually had a surprising amount of like Gen Alpha, like Sawyer's age, like not so much Zers, but like kids Sawyer's age taking our pictures too. And they knew who we were.
That would be like 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, 12, 13-year-olds.
Wow.
Like there with their...
For those that don't know who Sawyer is.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, like my nephew Sawyer just turned 13. And so like 12, 13-year-olds, which granted, their parents are elder millennials, so it makes complete sense that they would force their kids to watch this movie. But like they got really excited. We had a ton of people take our pictures. It was a lot of fun. Cobo Hall's a terrible venue. It's all concrete and it's really hard on the body. But I also don't know if that's just because I'm in my 30s now and I'm not as resilient as I used to be. Because after, I think we were there for about 8 hours, and you could tell all of us were getting tired after 6. And I'm like, man, we used to do this entire convention for the whole weekend and average 6 hours of sleep for 4 days. Like, I specifically would only sleep between like 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That was it, and I would be fine. But I was also in my teens and early 20s back then.
Oh.
So...
I don't know. I think I was always an old man. There was never a time, like I remember going to a con at 20, 21 years old, and by like, it was a Vampire the Masquerade game, live action, that I was playing in. So it was starting at 10 p.m. And I was like, are you kidding me? How can we start a game at 10 p.m.? I got to go to bed. You know, and it's like, so the game ends. I got bored halfway through the game. It like the plot, it wasn't, say what it was. It just didn't work out. I just remember going back to the hotel room and turning on the television and like, didn't care. I'm like, I'm done. And all I remember is that the televisions, like, I don't know if they still do, but hotels at the time had sort of an in-house television channel.
Yeah.
And they were playing X-Files reruns all night.
Nice.
I don't know if they were legally allowed to do that, but the con had sort of taken over the channel. and was playing reruns all night. So that was awesome.
That's cool. Also, in my defense, back then, UMCon was done at like the Marriott in Dearborn, and it's carpeted.
Yeah,
it's not great carpet, but that little bit of cushion makes a big difference.
Yeah, the HorrorCon is still, I think, in the Sheridan and Novi here around the corner from my house. And
Nice.
we went a couple of years. We met like some of the guys from The Walking Dead, and I then met oh man, all of a sudden his name went out of my head. The guy who played Pinhead. My horror cred is dwindling rapidly.
Womp womp.
Remember his name? Bradley, right? No. Somebody help me. Anyway,
I don't remember who played Pinhead.
And we met a bunch of other people there, and it was really cool. Like the woman that played E.T.'s, the parents on E.T. and in Cujo.
Doug Bradley.
I was halfway there, and then she was awesome too. And like you met a bunch of people, but it got like the last time we went, it was so crowded, and they still haven't moved it. And I couldn't even dare to go. It was
yeah, that's what kind of happened at I'm frankly at all the hotels. When it was at the Marriott and then the Renaissance. My last year, other than this year, was the first year that I was at the Renaissance. It was actually the convention that I debuted my steampunk dress, like the one that everyone knows me for. And it was before the obnoxious hoop. It's only a 4-ring hoop back then. It was did not take up nearly as much space as a 6-ring hoop. And I threw a kid down an escalator because he ripped my dress and told me it was my fault. I was also a lot angrier person back then. Although if someone fucks up with my costume, I will probably still send them down an escalator. But I also knew the entire security staff, and I did not get in trouble.
Nice.
All right. Well, we should wrap things up.
Yeah, I will post pictures. I don't know if was it Electric who did that?
Electric Ronin, yeah. He's not on the Discord though, so because he doesn't subscribe.
Don't you know Electric Ronin?
Yeah.
I'll send you pictures and you can send him pictures.
But yeah, so thank you again, Renee, for filling in.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Ed, for joining us.
Yes.
It was cool to talk with you again. It's been too long.
Yeah, it was awesome to chat with you, man. Miss ya.
Yeah, you are missed around the table. Everyone, whenever we bring it up and we talk about it, even like Rich and Pete and Russ are all like, yeah, I miss Ed.
Oh,
we do.
Nice. Oh, that's sad.
But yeah, so good luck with your game. I hope everything goes great with it. It sounds like you got a good start. Should be a lot of fun.
Are we on off Fridays? Or are we on the same Friday?
I don't know. Are you playing this Friday?
Nope.
Then we're on opposite Fridays.
Nice.
Fridays. Yes. Yeah. My buddy chose this on purpose. He pushed me to go a week earlier than I thought I was ready for. Worked out, but he's like, then we miss Thanksgiving, we miss Christmas, we miss this, we miss this, we miss this. I'm like, all right, dude, you're all on it. Like,
yeah. So ours, we've got a game this week. We've got the game the day after Thanksgiving, and then we've got December 9th, I think it is. And then we're done for the year because then it falls on our next one would be Christmas Eve, so it'd be the 23rd. So we're like, yeah, we're gonna skip that one. So
yeah, I think
well, I'll be going into the new year of addicts not getting a fix and just like itching.
I know all of my folks, they're like, I can't do Thanksgiving at all, even the day after. So that kind of cinched it for us. So we're like, oh, all right. But
yeah, we're doing
CD, no skips.
Yeah, we're doing Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving because everyone seems like they can make it. And
I work,
and I figure, yeah, you work that morning and the next day, but but Russ, we're hoping will have had enough sleep by then.
Yes.
Because with the parade company, that's why he's not here now, is because he's stuck at work until like now, at least every night, and except maybe Fridays. He was still wound up a little bit late, but make sure they're a cliffhanger on December 9th. Yeah, that would
be cruel.
Oh, that's what.
And it's totally going to happen because he does it every.
But yeah,
most of them.
I am actually. That was the thing. I'm hoping Russ will have enough sleep and he'll be able to make it too. So, but yeah. Oh yeah. The only other thing I was going to mention, Ed, I'm sure you saw the pictures of the Orcus that I painted. That is like the best thing that I think I've ever painted.
I saw the print, but I don't think I saw the painted results.
Oh yeah, it was in the painting. It was in the painting channel.
Oh, I might have to. Ooh, oh, very nice. Oh, he's even got dangly bits.
Yeah, and that printed on there like that.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. Have you seen like the octopi, like the multifaceted thing?
Yeah.
They come off and they like the satisfying removal.
Yep.
Oh, that's very nice. Nice.
Yeah, I'm actually.
Yeah,
I'm most happy about the base, the way I did the base. I think it came out really cool and stuff. So
one of my players has decided that this undead eidolon thing, the gnome necromancer dude, is that Orcus is somehow involved. And I'm like, you just opened up a huge can of worms, you realize. He's like, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want with it. But I think Orcus is really interesting to me. And I'm like, I remember Orcus being so undead focused when we were kids. Like in first and second edition, I don't remember him having an undead component, but maybe I just wasn't reading carefully.
Maybe I'm trying to think if he did or not. I can go pull out my my first edition monster manual and take a look at him.
Yeah, I got my deities and demigods over on the shelf too. But yeah, like Orcus, the wand of Orcus.
Nerds.
Yeah. But if you need a print, just let me know. I print out another Orcus and get them for you. You could paint them yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll end up. We'll see. I guess in Pathfinder he's a full deity. I don't know what he's on D&D, but he's a full-on deity that you could touch with a 10-foot.
Yeah, he's a demon lord in D&D, which is like a half a step down from a deity. So.
Sure. Okay. Oh God, we could go another hour.
Yeah, we could.
Oh, easy.
And there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we didn't even touch on Warhammer and stuff because I wanted to ask you about like the new Slaves to Darkness that's coming out and stuff like that and get your opinion on it. But
I mean, I'm only sort of peripherally aware of it because I've sort of fallen off. But it looks amazing, and a lot of the new miniatures look amazing. That Demon Prince is to die for. Like, if I can get my hands on one of those and use it for my corn army. Not that I play. I just collect this stuff. I'm looking over here at my pile.
Yeah, that's the thing. Chris and I have been like painting and collecting for close to 3 years now, and
have never played.
Yep, I haven't played a game.
I don't even have the current up-to-date rule book or like battle tomes book.
Yep.
For my Daughters of Cain.
I don't even know how 3rd edition works. I haven't played a game of 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar. I have no idea.
So Ronan actually said could always be an avatar of Orcus.
True. Yeah.
But anyway, so we should get going though. We could keep talking all night. Midwest goodbye.
Got one more thing because we didn't do it at the top.
So they do have a name for their group, by the way. The group that you were in for Tavern Nights, the group's name is One More.
It's not D&D related though.
Yeah, it's One More Room.
It's One More. It's just because we always do celebrity deaths. Sadly, Aaron Carter passed away this week at the young age of 34. I personally wasn't big into Aaron Carter's music, but I was a very avid listener of the Backstreet Boys, where his older brother was in. It's actually kind of how he got his start, because he opened for the Backstreet Boys numerous times when he was trying to get his career off the ground. So I have seen him live twice, and always did a great job. I mean, I couldn't get up and rap when I was 13 years old in front of a sold out show at the Palace. It's really sad. I suspect they don't actually have a cause of death yet, but I suspect it's probably OD because he was found in a bathtub, and he's struggled with substance abuse his entire adult life. But it's still sad.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well.
On that
depressing note, we're gonna get going.
Yep.
So thanks again, Ed, for coming out. You're always welcome on the show. We love having you. Thanks again, Renee, for filling in for Russ. Next week we will be off because Renee and I will be in New York. So New York City.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll be back the following week, the week before Thanksgiving. It'll probably be Renee and I again, and we'll see if we can scrounge somebody up to help us as well. So but yeah, so I think on that note, until
On
next
that
time.
note, sorry, I don't know the prompts.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Okay, not too bad.
Good night.
All right, have a good night, everybody.